You know what's wild? Clarity never comes in the middle of noise. It comes in the silence. While you're right there in her life, always available, always answering, always showing up, she doesn't feel the weight of your presence because it's constant. It's like air, essential but invisible. She doesn't think twice about it. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop chasing, stop over-delivering, and start protecting your energy, that's when she feels it. That's when absence becomes a mirror, showing her exactly what she had but didn't appreciate. And in that emptiness, she finally sees the truth. What she once overlooked wasn't ordinary at all, it was rare, and now it's gone. Here's the thing. When you give consistently, it can almost become invisible. The good mornings, the thoughtful texts, the way you always made sure she felt safe, supported, and cared for. After a while, it just blends into the background. She stops seeing it as effort and starts seeing it as standard. But the moment you stop, the moment that consistency disappears, it suddenly becomes glaring. The quiet is deafening. The phone that used to light up doesn't anymore. The comfort she once overlooked now feels like a void she can't escape. And it's in that exact contrast between what was always there and what's no longer that she finally begins to realize how much your presence meant. And then comes the silence. It's amazing how loud silence can be when it used to be filled with your voice, your laughter, your presence. She doesn't notice your calls when they're constant, but when her phone sits still, when days go by without your name lighting up, that's when it stings. That silence forces her to sit with herself, to replay the moments she used to take for granted. Every missed notification becomes a reminder that the man who once made her feel chosen is no longer reaching out. And suddenly, she craves the very thing she once ignored, the sound of you being there. Familiarity is a tricky thing. It has a way of making even the most beautiful gestures look ordinary. When you were there, making her laugh, supporting her dreams, showing up when it mattered, she may have thought, "This is just what he does." It becomes routine, part of the background, almost expected. But when that routine breaks, when the everyday effort suddenly vanishes, it feels like a shock to the system. What she once dismissed as normal now feels priceless because she realizes not everyone shows up like that, not everyone gives like that, and not everyone loves like that. It's only when the pattern is broken that the true value of it comes crashing in. What's fascinating is how quickly something can shift from being expected to being deeply missed. When she thought your attention, your care, your love would always be there, it was easy for her to take it for granted. She assumed tomorrow you'd show up the same way you did today, that your effort was endless. But the moment you stopped, the moment you pulled back, it created a gap she didn't know how to fill. Suddenly what she once rolled her eyes at, what she brushed off as just him, turns into the very thing she's desperate to feel again. And that's when she realizes expectation has now turned into longing, and the man she thought would never leave has become the man she can't stop missing. The moment you pull your energy back is the moment everything changes. When you stop overextending, when you stop giving to someone who only noticed you when it was convenient, it forces her to feel the gap you leave behind. She suddenly realizes that your effort wasn't automatic. It was a choice, and now that choice is gone. Withdrawal isn't about punishment. It's about respect for yourself. And ironically, it's that respect that makes her start to see you differently. Because when a man who once gave so much decides to step back, it creates a shift she can't ignore. She begins to feel the weight of everything you used to carry for her, and in that space, she understands just how much she underestimated you. It's only in contrast that true value is revealed. While you were there, showing up day after day, she had nothing to compare it to. It just felt normal. But the moment you step away, the moment your presence is replaced with people who don't listen as deeply, don't care as fully, don't give as consistently, she starts to notice the difference. Suddenly, every interaction she has feels lacking compared to what you gave so effortlessly. It's in that comparison that she realizes you weren't just another man, you were the standard. And once she feels that gap between you and everyone else, it becomes almost impossible for her to ignore what she's lost. And that's when regret creeps in. At first, she tells herself she's fine, that she doesn't need you, that life moves on. But late at night, when it's quiet, she starts to replay the moments she once brushed aside. The way you made her laugh when she didn't want to smile, the way you noticed details no one else ever did, the way you made her feel chosen in a world where most people settle for being convenient. Those memories come back sharper than ever, and instead of comfort, they sting. Because now, they're not just memories of what was, they're reminders of what she can't get back. Regret replaces the comfort she once had, and suddenly the ordinary moments she dismissed have become the ones she aches for the most. What makes this hit the hardest is when she finally realizes how rare you actually were. Because here's the truth, men who give with depth, with consistency, with genuine care, they are not everywhere. They're not lining up around every corner. They're not easy to replace, no matter what she told herself in the beginning. And this realization doesn't come while you're standing there, always available, making her feel secure. It comes later, in the silence, when she looks around and sees what's left without you. At first, she doesn't see it. She convinces herself that what you brought was standard. She believes there will be another man who checks in, who listens, who remembers the little things, who actually shows up. But then she meets others, she entertains conversations, she spends time around men who talk big but disappear when it matters, men who show interest only when it benefits them, men who don't have the patience or the emotional intelligence to actually make her feel understood. And that's when it dawns on her, what she had wasn't just love, it was rare. Because the truth is, depth is uncommon. In a world where people are distracted, where attention spans are short, where everyone is chasing the next shiny thing, a man who pours into one person, who gives consistently, who chooses with intention, that's not ordinary. That's not something you stumble upon every week or even every year. That's something people spend a lifetime searching for and sometimes never find. And the tragedy is, she only realizes it once it's gone. When you were there, she had no contrast. She thought effort like yours was the baseline. But now, every interaction she has shows her the opposite. She meets men who text sporadically, who are charming on the surface but disappear the moment life gets complicated. She meets men who like the chase but don't know how to stay. She meets men who give attention but not commitment, interest but not depth, desire but not care. And every one of those encounters makes her look back at you with new eyes, and that's when the regret deepens. Because she didn't just lose a man, she lost the man, the one who didn't need to be asked to show up because he already did. The one who didn't give love in fragments, but in full. The one who wasn't afraid to be steady in a world that glorifies uncertainty. And that rarity becomes haunting. She starts to remember all the times she thought your consistency was boring. The times she rolled her eyes at your predictability. The times she wished for more drama, more chase, more fire. because she thought love was supposed to be chaos. And now she realizes what she mistook as routine was actually the very thing she needed: stability, security, depth. The kind of love that doesn't burn out, but builds. And once that truth hits, it hits hard. Here's the painful irony. She once thought she could find better. She thought your presence was replaceable, that your qualities existed in abundance. But now she looks around and sees the opposite: flakiness, self-absorption, half-hearted effort. And suddenly, what once felt ordinary now looks extraordinary. Your patience, your consistency, your loyalty, those weren't common traits. Those were rare treasures. And treasures once lost are not easily recovered. And you know what's even more powerful? She doesn't just miss the things you did. She misses the way those things made her feel. She misses feeling chosen. She misses feeling safe. She misses feeling like someone truly understood her, not just on the surface, but deeply. And the cruel part is, she can't manufacture that with someone else, because it wasn't just about what you did. It was about who you were. And when that reality sinks in, it's like a storm inside her chest. She begins to understand that she let go of someone who was irreplaceable. She begins to feel the weight of her own dismissal, the foolishness of her own assumptions. And regret, once it takes root, doesn't just fade. It lingers, it gnaws at her. It turns ordinary memories into sharp reminders of what she'll never get back. Because here's the truth about rarity: it doesn't hit you until you compare it with the common. And once you've experienced something rare, everything else feels flat in comparison. Once you've been with someone who gave fully, who loved deeply, who showed up consistently, it's almost impossible to settle for less. Every man she meets will be measured against you, and most will fall short. Not because they're bad people, but because what you brought wasn't just good. It was exceptional. And here's the cruelest part of all: she can't undo it. She can't rewind. She can't go back and appreciate you in the moments she should have. She can't take back the times she dismissed your love, or overlooked your effort, or assumed you'd never leave. All she can do now is sit with the reality that her actions, or her inaction, cost her something priceless. And that awareness alone is enough to make her miss you in a way that doesn't just fade over time, but grows stronger the more she realizes what she lost. Because people don't just miss what you did for them, they miss who they were when they were with you. She'll miss the version of herself that laughed freely because of you, the version of herself that felt protected because of you, the version of herself that believed in love because of you. And when you take all that away, it leaves a hole no one else can quite fill. That's the punishment of taking someone rare for granted. The recognition doesn't come at the beginning, when it's still possible to fix things. It comes at the end, when the door has already closed, and by then, the regret is permanent. She may try to reach out. She may send messages, test the waters, try to see if the door is still open. But deep down she knows, when a man who gives with that kind of depth finally chooses to walk away, it's not out of spite. It's out of self-respect, and self-respect rarely goes back to what disrespected it. That's what makes the loss so real. So she carries that weight, quietly, privately. While you move on, she replays the story. While you build, she looks back. And while you become stronger in your absence, she becomes weaker in her regret. Because the truth is, a man like you, steady, consistent, loving, can be taken for granted only once. After that, you're gone. And once you're gone, she'll search and search, but she'll never find the same again. And that's the moment it fully lands. Rarity doesn't ask to be recognized. It demands to be felt. And when it's gone, it echoes louder than anything else. The moment a man realizes his worth, everything changes. For so long, you may have stayed, giving pieces of yourself away, thinking that eventually she would see it. Eventually, she would understand the value of the love you brought into her life. You kept showing up because that's who you are. You kept pouring out because it's in your nature. And in the back of your mind, maybe there was a part of you that thought, if I just keep giving, she'll wake up one day and finally appreciate it. But the truth is, appreciation rarely comes when someone thinks they'll never lose you. It only comes when the loss is real, when the silence is undeniable, when the man she thought would always be there is no longer within reach. And here's the paradox: by walking away, by reclaiming your self-respect, it may mean more. You don't make yourself smaller, you make yourself unforgettable. Not because you forced her to miss you, not because you manipulated her absence, but because you finally honored your value. You finally decided that being taken for granted was not the story of your life, and the moment you did that, you became the man who could no longer be ignored. She starts remembering you differently. At first, she thought of you as the man who was always there, the steady hand she could lean on. She thought you were permanent, a fixture in her world. But now, with you gone, her memory changes. You're no longer background noise. You're the echo she can't silence. You're no longer just there. You're the one who left an imprint so deep that nothing else compares. Because when a man walks away with dignity, he leaves behind something far stronger than presence. He leaves behind absence that demands recognition. And that absence, it haunts her. She starts to notice it in the smallest places. She walks into a room and remembers the way you used to stand there, steady, protective, calm. She hears a joke and instinctively thinks of the way you would have laughed harder than anyone else. She faces a hard day and remembers that once upon a time, you were the one who made her feel like the weight wasn't hers to carry alone. These aren't just passing thoughts, these are constant reminders. They're ghosts of the life she once had, ghosts that whisper you had something rare and you let it go. And here's the brutal truth: what makes you unforgettable is not the fact that you stayed, but the fact that you had the strength to leave. Anyone can stay, anyone can linger in a place where they're undervalued, hoping for crumbs of appreciation. But it takes strength to walk away when you know your worth isn't being seen. It takes courage to choose self-respect over comfort, to choose silence over pleading, to choose absence over being half loved. And that courage, that choice, is what cements you in her memory. She will never forget that. She'll never forget the man who gave fully, then walked away when his love was treated like it was disposable. She'll never forget the way your absence made her realize how much she underestimated your presence. She'll never forget the moment it hit her that she had lost not just a man, but the man, because unforgettable isn't about noise, it's about impact. And your impact doesn't fade, it lingers, it stings, it transforms. And as time passes, something else happens. She starts to look for you in others. She listens for the same tone in someone else's voice. She searches for the same depth in someone else's words. She craves the same steadiness in someone else's actions. But it's never quite the same, because no one else carries your combination of patience, humor, loyalty, depth. No one else carries your quiet strength, your ability to give without asking for attention, your way of making someone feel like the only person in the world. She'll keep searching, but the comparison will never fade, and every time she realizes that, the memory of you grows stronger. And here's the irony: Your unforgettable nature doesn't come from what you did for her. It comes from what you did for yourself. By walking away, you showed her that your love was a gift, not an obligation. You showed her that your effort was a choice, not a default. You showed her that your presence had value, and that value wasn't free to those who couldn't respect it. And when a man shows that kind of self-respect, he etches himself into the mind of the one who failed to honor him. So while she sits in regret, you stand in strength. While she replays the past, you build your future. While she longs for the man she once overlooked, you live as the man who no longer tolerates being overlooked. And that contrast is what makes you unforgettable, not just in her story, but in your own. Because unforgettable isn't about her missing you. It's about you stepping into a life where you're finally valued the way you deserve. And the more you step into that life, the clearer it becomes for her. She didn't just lose you, she lost the chance to grow alongside you. She lost the chance to be with the man who would have chosen her again and again. She lost the chance to be loved in a way that most people spend their entire lives praying for. And that kind of loss, it doesn't fade. It lingers. It becomes part of her story. She'll tell herself she's moved on. She'll tell her friends she's fine. She'll post the pictures, live the life, and try to convince herself that the hole isn't there. But deep down, she knows she let go of a man who was irreplaceable. She knows she will never find another you. And every time she remembers, every time she feels that emptiness, every time she compares what she has now to what she once had, your name echoes inside her chest. And that is the power of knowing your worth. That is the power of walking away. That is the power of becoming unforgettable, not because you demanded to be remembered, but because you refused to be taken for granted. And when a man reaches that place, when he chooses self-respect over desperation, when he steps into his own strength, he doesn't just leave a mark. He leaves a legacy in the memory of the one who thought he'd never go. And in the end, it all comes down to this. Being missed is not about holding on tighter. It's about knowing when to let go. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop giving to someone who couldn't see your worth, is the moment your absence begins to speak louder than your presence ever could. Because real strength isn't in convincing someone to value you. It's in valuing yourself enough to walk away. And when you do, you don't just become the man she remembers. You become the man she can never forget.